Good evening, mentorship team. Coach Cliff. We are live here. Excited to be with you on the call and go over your training and your plans this evening and talk about things that you've been doing in your training. So I'm on the road this week. I'm actually on the East Coast, meeting up with athletes out here and getting ready for our Lake Placid training camp, which is going to be an awesome weekend. About 4 days of just all you can eat, all you can drink kind of training, which is a great event and a great location. So this is the mentorship team. We're kicking it all off here. You text in your questions. Any question is fair game. We can talk about nutrition, training. We can talk about anything that's on your minds at this point. I'm going to keep up a pretty tight schedule here this evening, talking a bit about heat training for you guys and how to interact with that during your races and during your training as well. So I want you to go ahead and text in things that are going well for you in your training. Give me a thumbs up, give me a like when things are going right. Give me a question mark, give me a heart, whatever you want to signal how your things are going for you guys and how you're feeling. So the other thing that I want you guys to think about upcoming is that we're kind of in this part of the season, so seasonally speaking, where races are really starting to kick off. People are testing their fitness. Races are, the place where we start to figure out how fast we can go and what the rest of the season is going to look like. So for a lot of the people on the East Coast where I am right now, they're just starting to get into their races and just start to kind of stretch their legs, so to speak. And for a lot of our West Coasters, they've already had a pretty robust season so far of racing. Maybe not everybody, but it's a good time of year, I think, for us to start talking about the temperature and the heat and while you're racing, what to be thinking about. So when the temperature is above about 75 degrees, that's where things really start to ramp up. The heat is on. And it's at about that temperature where you have to start thinking about extra electrolytes, extra hydration, and things like that as we move into racing and training. So how much water should we actually be taking in? Typically, it's about a half an ounce to about 1 full ounce of water per minute that you are exercising in more extreme heat conditions. So that's a lot of water, and I'll guarantee that a lot of you guys are just below a half an ounce per minute. And if you're lower than that, right, you're going to find that your body becomes like the Tin Man. It slows down, and that your heart rate goes up. And as you dehydrate, it's like a car with sludge in the blood, and it gets really hard and thick and viscous to try to push through that heart rate because you're just so dehydrated, basically. So that's how much water. Salt and electrolytes. When we talk about salt and electrolytes, we're talking about chromium, magnesium, as well as the salt component. So it's an electrolyte profile that we're looking for. And what about bike cooling? Okay, so when we're on the bike, there's a lot of different ways you can stay cool. You can have ventilated parts of your helmet. You can take water from aid stations and you actually sprinkle it on your legs. I think that's a really good technique to stay cool, and keeps those major muscle groups nice and cold when you're racing and when you're training too. So good thing for you guys to be thinking about. Next is, what about run cooling? How do we stay cool on the run? Well, during racing, my favorite strategy is to have you guys use ice underneath the cap, sponges that you squeeze on your head so that the water goes down your side of your face and especially down into your carotid arteries here. These major veins, these arteries are propelling blood up and down the head, and they also create a lot of heat in the head. And this surface area, when we cool it, actually cools the whole core temperature down. And so it's really critical to keep that core temperature nice and low. So I'm going to pause there for one moment, and I'm going to dive into a little bit some of the questions that you guys have. I've got a featured video playing for you guys. This is the Elite, hopefully the Elite Women's Super League Triathlon from Abu Dhabi in 2016. And this was a really hot race, so I thought it was very timely to have you guys be watching this. So Durst kicks us off this evening with the first question. What's going on, Durst? Durst says, hey, Cliff, good training this week. Really only have one pre-thought question. Would rather not spend a week recovering after the next Olympic distance try and putting together a relay team. Between the disciplines, which can I get the most benefit training-wise out of a relay? Okay, so if you're training and you're trying to use a relay as part of your strategy to advance your fitness, advance your training, my suggestion is be careful with the run. It depends, I think the bike, because it is proportionately a larger part of swim, bike, run when we're racing, you'll get more benefit for that reason. But I would tackle it as the do the bike or do probably the run, because if you're weaker on the bike, do more bike time trialing. That's a really hard thing for me to give you guys, is that type of cycling energy and power in a extended period of time, right? It's not very realistic for me to say, hey, go Durst and go crank for 3 hours, for instance, on a 70.3 relay, or even Olympic relay for that matter. 40K is a really hard effort, okay? So my suggestion would be to do just that. All right, good evening, Alana. What's happening? Alana says, hi, are my heart rate zones set correctly, or do they need to be adjusted? Yes, so you're going to need to keep adjusting them and doing testing to keep them up to date. There is a whole sequence of Evernote blocks that I'll give you and post here for you to do tests, subsequent tests that I want you to do to test that heart rate. Intermittently, I will jump in and dive in and try to, at the end of the month, adjust your thresholds. But ideally, right, we want to have those done in test scenarios. Those are races. Those are specific, training sessions that are fairly intense and difficult. So that's to answer that. 2, Alana says, on a run, June 14th, it says to do 10 minutes or 2 hours, 10 minutes in the middle. Should we be trying to pick up the pace then in order to slightly increase heart rate? I was a little confused. Best to do this. My in-home tech support also. Okay, so for you, Alana, right now, stay focused on your longest runs on heart rate. Okay, so in keeping that heart rate nice and low, don't worry about pace as much right now. Try to stick to whatever the actual session is asking you to do. I can't speak exactly what that session is. I'll try to jump back and find it here in a little bit as we get rolling through some of the questions on that June 14th date. Alana also says, pointed out that I wasn't using a chest strap heart rate monitor because I never turned off the wrist. Don't. So the wrist strap is not going to be as accurate. These things happen, things like turning on GPS, etc. So Durst says, copy that. I like the sound of the bike. The girlfriend is already an incredible runner, so I'll have her there. If anyone watching is near Utah and wants to swim, come join. Durst, man, if we were close to Utah, we would be doing a lot of things together with you, my friend. Mike says, Coach, I noticed you have my scheduled 6-hour ride after the sprint try this Sunday. Boy, is that diabolical, huh? Man, what a reward you get. Yeah, the icing on the cake is you get to go ride for 6 hours. Now that is getting it done for Ironman for Lake Placid, buddy. Okay, so can you tackle that ride on Saturday after your swim instead of a brick instead? So look, I have no problem if you want to do that the day before. No big deal. That's perfectly up to you. You're going to typically go into that race a little bit more tired, and if you want to flip-flop that for your schedule needs, I don't have a problem with that at all. And so yeah, go ahead and make that edit, make that switch. Perfectly fine to do there. All right, so I'm going to jump back into run cooling and how you stay cool on the run. So we talked about sponges. Ice underneath the cap is another good one because we're cooling off those carotid arteries. Some people use things like arm coolers that can get wet and take on a little bit of wind and cool off the skin. Anything to evaporate some of that and dissipate some of that heat. In running, it's tough to stay cool. It really is, and that comes down to more pacing, honestly, that keeps us cool in the beginning. If we go out too fast, then we run the risk in a hot race that we're going to blow up anyway. And so we have to really throttle backwards to heart rate and perceived effort on much harder, hotter races like that. So that's run heat and how to stay cool. How about pre-race swim cooling? Oh yeah. So your core temperature is this thing that it's constantly has a value, and when it goes much higher before the swim, there's a much better chance when you get out on the bike that you're going to be that much warmer. And if you're that much warmer on the bike, guess what? That means you're that much warmer on the run. So what we have to do is keep the core temperature nice and cool before you go into the water. That means delaying putting on the wetsuit, trying not to move around too much. So whatever techniques you can do to stay cool before the pre-swim on a warm day is ideal, because we don't want to get that core temperature up too high. You guys will notice, like in the Tour de France, for instance, a lot of athletes will spin on the bike to get their core temperature up, and you know what? They'll wear actual ice packs to keep their chest and core temperature low so that they don't get that core temperature higher, which drives heart rate higher, which produces more fatigue at the end stage of a lot of events. So thank you for the likes. Thank you for the kudos there. Appreciate that, guys. Awesome. We got a good 6 of you on the call this evening. Who else hasn't chimed in and asked us some questions? I can't quite see everybody who's online from my end, but just want to make sure you jump in there. Don't be shy. Yes, this is a group, but this is their chance, guys, to really learn from each other and ask those questions. No reason to be shy. You can hide behind the text, and I'll field all the questions, okay? What's happening, Denise? Hopefully you'll be able to make it up to Lake Placid this weekend. How's your training going? What's the latest? Good to have you on the call. All right, so Mike says it'll be a fun race even if I'm tired. Yeah, man, absolutely. Even if you train 6 hours a day before, right? If you went balls to the wall on this bike, I can't guarantee that you're going to have a good sprint race, but you're still going to have a good race no matter what, because you're super fit. Unless you go climb some major elevation gain the day before you do the race also on that 6-hour bike, you should be just fine. And either way, like you said, it is just a sprint. It's a hard effort. So go nail it, go pin it, go have fun. Go have fun. All right, so let's try and jump back to Alana's question here. Maybe I can dive into that run on the 14th, Alana. And I'm going to see if I can get a little bit tricky here for a second. And it's going to take me just a chance to get to the website views. Look, we have Mr. Chris McCormick. Nice. Ironman world champ multiple times over. Guy's pretty good. All right, let's see. So, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to jump over there just yet. Let's see if that does it for us. I'll have to circle up on that one, Alana, and get back to you. See if I can get to it. Denise says, no training, still sick, not coming to Lake Placid. That's a bummer. Sorry to hear that, but hopefully next year another chance. Maybe even Boulder at this point, or some other chance to all get together. But feel better, and hopefully it's just short term at this point. But yeah, we'll be thinking of you and missing you up there. So Alana says, feel like overall everything is going well. By the way, feeling much more comfortable on the tri-bike, did an FTP swim test. Great. And not the most fun thing you've ever done. Yeah, we will put you in the uncomfortable spot when it's training. And, when you do something that's harder, your body's going to reward you with something better. So, yes, there is this kind of push-pull type of effect. And, yeah, those time trials are freaking tough. And sometimes they're great to have people with you. So, take Mike, take Yasi with you, take Kristen with you, go and do those hard swims. Sometimes solo is fine too. But you really want to be pushing yourself hard on those. But the caveat I will say is to hold best form no matter what, which is also not easy to do. So I'm glad you're feeling good. That's awesome stuff. Also glad that you're feeling good on the tri-bike. Cool, very good. And yeah, thanks for giving a shout out to Denise. Yes, we hope she feels better soon too. Thanks, Alana, for that. Who else is on the call here? Who else is on the call asking questions, asking good questions? Okay, let's keep rolling. So we got through the pre-race swim. We talked a little bit about head and neck being the areas that need to be cooled, that are very important areas. Another one is we talked about a little bit core temperature, but I'm going to kind of dive into that more. So core temperature is like the deep internal temperature, and it works from the center and goes out. And you could start that fire burning nice and hot in the center of the core, of the center of your muscle, for instance, your quads, right in the center, and it's just going to work its way to the outside until you get much hotter, and it's harder to cool those entire muscles. And so we want to constantly work to dissipate that heat. Your body only has limited resources in how it's going to do that. The skin, all of your skin is a way to transport heat. So just remember that. You want to keep that airflow on the body as best you can. Next is salt stick versus Nun versus what? I really have a hard time with a lot of folks trying to use Nun versus salt stick for long course. And Nun is a nice product because it tastes good. It's easy to get down. It plop, plop, fizz, fizz, does what it needs to do when you drop it in the water. But it really doesn't have nearly as much salt, chromium, magnesium, the things that you sweat out that you need. So Nun is a great supplement. It's great more for training. Salt stick's great for racing. Make sure you practice with salt stick, guys. Really important here as the heat comes up. There's also other products out there, pill form. Just like I said, the main thing is making sure that you get enough salt, and the concentrated pills do a great job of that. And you just want to make sure they have chromium and magnesium as well in there, because those are the things that you're also sweating out, not just salt alone. All right, moving on. Cooling gear, right? We talked a little bit about arm warmers, like these shawls that you see some people wear. They're helpful for the longer races. Debatable, not everybody feels good with them. It's personal preference. Whatever you want to use it, but practice with it and try it out before you ever decide that this is what you want to do on race day, okay? All right, next is dry heat training and races. So dry heat masks the actual hydration need, and it's usually too late before you actually realize whether or not you've hydrated well enough, and you can kind of see the salt caked on your body way too late if you get to that point. You just have to know that in dry conditions, you're not going to feel as thirsty, and that you have to force it, and you have to measure it how much you need to drink. So dry, hot races are, a little bit unique in that way, so just be more mindful of them. Not that you don't sweat in a humid race, but at least you'll recognize it and see it pooling off you, and be able to, recognize that you're dehydrated or dehydrating. Okay, overhydration. This is not a lot of people can get to overhydration. It happens very rarely. It's called hyponatremia. And hyponatremia does happen from time to time for some people, but you have to be slugging down a lot of water. And the other thing is you have to be not having very much salt. So the salt is what allows your body to absorb all the fluids. When you don't have salt, chromium, magnesium, in the gut, right, then it can't transport that water into the body, and so your stomach will just kind of distend and fill up. So it's more rare that we have overhydration, but it is something to be considering. More on the cooler races, I find more novice athletes who get, read the Riot Act that they need to drink a lot may accidentally do something like that, overdrink on a cool day, but it happens more rarely. Dehydration symptoms, there are many. Slowing down of pace, increased heart rate, overall confusion, sense of stomach uneasiness, cramping of the stomach, lack of kind of clarity in the head. It's all sorts of bad, guys. And anytime you lose more than about a pound, let's call it two pounds of body weight, your performance is suffering. And when you get down to deeper stuff like 4 and 5 pounds of actual fluid loss, then you're in the danger zone where you're going to need medical attention. So we won't ever want to get there. Just follow and stick to these guidelines to really help you guys figure stuff out. So that's the 411 on heat training, hydration and cooling, kind of the cliff notes, if you will, the quick stuff. So let's go back to discussing a little bit questions you guys have here. So Mike says, for long course, was thinking of running with a flask with concentrated tailwind and pop some salt pills as well, while using water at aid stations to mix with the flask. What are your thoughts? Great strategy. I really like the idea of doing that kind of thing. I prefer that you try to take everything, if you can, at the aid stations themselves, because you've got this rolling buffet. But if there's something special you want and you're going to practice with it and train hard with it, and you know it works for you, then by all means, go for it. That is cool. Totally cool. So yeah, running with something in your hand, if it's small and it's going to help you out during the race, that's no big deal. A lot of people do it all the time. It's not my personal preference. I don't like running with stuff in my hand, but everybody's a little different. Grabbing things from the aid stations is a good thing, and grabbing on the fly and mixing it like that, no problem. Swish it all around, get it down. And the beauty of that too, Mike, is that you really have a lot of different options at your disposal when you're at these aid stations. So if you want to take on some water or less water, for instance, or something else, alternatively, you've got that right there. So the flask is kind of a good option to use for sure. Okay, good questions coming along. Great follow-up ones here. Mike, I missed you. One of your questions, you said, you ever run with one of those cooling towels on your neck? I have not done that, but I know for some it works nicely. I will leave it for one of you guys out there to design it, but a neck cooling system, I always thought it'd be cool if you had ice in a cap and you could put it in there, or a sponge, and then as you squeezed it right, some of that ice or some of that water transferred down into that and slowly dripped out through a catch system in the neck. And that piece would come around like this. So patent it, use it. It's my idea for you guys. There you go. Never got around to it, but yeah, I think it would be pretty cool to use. So for very long races, Mike, that's a good option for sure. Kevin, welcome to the call, my friend. Hope all is well. You're getting on the trainer and you're going to go crunch and munch those legs. I saw some pictures of you and your recovery and getting your double bike day on the other day. So glad to have you back in training and starting to get strong again. Cool stuff. And let's see. Mike says he just wants to be like Rinny, like like Michael Jordan, Rinny. Awesome. You can tell us who you want to be. It's cool, Mike. It's totally cool. When you grow up, just let us know also who you want to be too. Let's see. Other questions that are coming along through the chat this evening. Okay. So we covered all my kind of notes on hydration here at this point, guys. I'm going to turn the keys over to you, and you tell me any other additional questions that you have for this evening. We have a good group of folks headed up to Lake Placid. The weather for this weekend is actually supposed to be just like it always is in the Adirondacks, complete hit or miss. So it could be cold, a little bit of rain, a little bit of sun, a little bit of everything from literally 44 degrees all the way up to 75, 80 degrees. So pretty exciting stuff. And we'll have lots of pictures to show you guys sure when we're up there. Okay, so Durr says, hey, Cliff, in training, he says, hey, Cliff, in Training Peaks, can you remind me how to find the fastest segment on an FTP test to determine that, specifically June the 9th? All right, let's see. I wasn't able to do it before. Let's see if I can do that here. Just bear with me 1 second. Let's just see here. And we're going to cruise on over to Training Peaks and Durst. And this is the way I would do it. So I'm gonna explode this up a little bit bigger now so you guys can see it. Okay. So Durst, you were saying specifically June 9th. Let's see if I can scroll back there and go back. And so you're looking for peak on an FTP test, June 9th. Okay. Yeah, I see the East Canyon Tri on June 9th. June 9th. But I'm not seeing an FTP test there in particular, Durst. So I'll just show you how to do it either way. So here's your run, okay? You go to Map and Graph. And rather than have the entire workout, if you tap on Entire Workout, gives you this option of ticking off different time points, and you can select different time points. It's a little easier to do, I think, on the web app. It's a little easier, but so if you highlight 1 mile, it shows you there where that peak 1 mile happened. So your very last mile, right, was your fastest mile. And then if I go back and I say, well, I want to know where your peak 5K was. Well, there it was, your last 5K. So you continuously got faster and faster. So you can highlight it in that way, which is pretty cool. So hopefully that answered your question, Durst. Just let me know. East Canyon on the swim you want to know. Yep. So same deal, right? You go to Map and Graph, Entire Workout, and then you split it by peak paces here at the top of the screen. And here you can find, here's your best 30 seconds. Boom, right in the first 30 seconds of the start of the swim. Then let's see how you fared after that. You did your best 1 minute, same area, and your best, let's call it 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes of the race. You can kind of see a trend, right? I have a feeling that all your bests happened. Yeah. Oh, no, not necessarily. Okay, so you had a whole bunch of short 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minute bests in the first about 8 to 10 minutes of the race, but then you actually had a 12-minute best that hit towards the end of the swim, which is fantastic. That shows that you actually parceled out your effort a little bit better, and that's a good sign. It's a very good sign that you didn't actually slow down all that much, but you really just kind of parceled out the effort. And a little bit of surge in the beginning is not terrible if you're an experienced swimmer, and then you settled into something that you could actually maintain. So yes, Training Peaks, it's all there, guys. It's all there, and all easy to find once you know where to find it. Yes, it is nice to know, Yuki, and you can do that with pace. You can do it with heart rate, for instance. We can show you where, Durst, your peak heart rate was for 5 minutes. Right there it is at the very end. So when you were jamming it right at the end of the swim, your best heart rate of average of 158 for that 10 minutes was right there. So pretty good stuff to be able to analyze that and see, how you were doing there. Yuki, you're quiet this evening, but looks like you just learned something. We just got you untapped there with it, learning how to find peak paces, peak heart rate, peak power. So when you're in the similar type of map view, guys, on Training Peaks on the web side, then you get these little boxes that you can tick down, and you can highlight like the 5-minute best, 10-minute best, where that happened, 12-minute best, and then that gives you kind of a color gradation of where those peak bests happen. I use that a lot to figure out how well you guys paced, for instance. So Durst says he stopped the watch once and he entered transition, which was a short run from the water, hence the heart rate spike. Gotcha. Yeah, I can see that. I see that, man. No problem. We gotcha. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, mentorship team. So till next week, we adjourn, and we'll be back. I'll be back on the West Coast, and I'll have lots to report on our training camp. Remember, the Boulder training camp is going to be the last week of August, in the first couple days of September. Good chance for you guys to really put in some great training, get the skills on the swim, skills on the bike, skills on the run. There's a lot of instruction that happens there, so hope to have you guys always be able to make some of these camps that we do. And also, I want you guys to keep an open mind for all the different races that we posted for next year. We have team events that are happening, which are really exciting. We have I think I selected 8 races that you guys voted on, and we're going to be all over the country and a little bit even out of the country as well. So last question here. Denise asks, when is Boulder? It's the last week of August and the first couple of days of September. I don't know those exact dates, but I'll drop in a link here when we end the call. Okay, mentorship team. Till next week. Good luck, all you TriStar athletes out there. Have a great week of training ahead and weekend, and we'll be seeing you real soon next week live. I'll talk to you guys soon.